Welcome to the Medical Device Marketing Podcast. My name is Claudia Holy, and I'm here today with Becca Brady, Account Director at Podymos. Welcome, Becca.
Hiya, I'm really looking forward to talking about events today.
Good, well, because events is an area that you know a lot about because it's where you came from at Informa. So what we're going to talk about today for everybody listening is we're going to talk about events in medical device. It has changed significantly post-COVID, all other things. So are events still really worth it? We have seen the number of attendees drop in certain areas. You know, are they places that you should still be spending your budget, and how should that fit in line with other marketing activities you're doing, particularly a whole multi-channel campaign? So hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a good overview of all those things I've just spoken about and decide if events are right for you. The answer is always, it depends. And Becca will explain more around that. So Becca, first question, what are the benefits of attending events?
So the benefits are definitely networking is a big one. You get to meet new people. Depending on how good the agenda is at an event, is an opportunity to stay on like the hot topics and the trends. You can really see that. It is also good brand awareness, especially at the bigger events, because sometimes not going to a big event says more than going to a big event. If you're clearly missing, like that says a lot. So the big event, the best, the advantages really are brand awareness, thought leadership, and then just networking, I'd say, are the big three reasons to be attending events.
So it's not always, what I'm hearing you're saying is it's not always about revenue, immediate revenue. Or is it?
It is and it isn't. I think, it depends on the event, because there are some events that you're going to stay up to date and because you have to be there from a brand awareness. And it is less of a lead generation activity. It's more about keeping you in the eye of your audience. And then there are some more maybe little events that are more lead generation, and then you are going, a lot of companies I see, they go into events they don't go to them every year. They're like trying a new area, and it's an area that doesn't know that company or know that product. That is purely lead gen. That's trying to get new names in a new area. But yeah, it isn't the main reason for everybody to go to events. And I think it's a really important point to think about before you go, like, why are we going? Because I know that sometimes sales teams come back and say, that event was worthless. I didn't get any leads from that event. And then that wasn't the intention of going. Like, marketing might have chosen that event because of it. It's a lead generation. It's not a lead generation. It's a brand awareness. Or it's because their KOL is speaking in that event and they wanted to support that KOL speaking and get messaging out there about their product via the KOL. So there are definitely different reasons to attend events, and it's really important that you're on the right page as a whole team about why you're attending an event, because that dictates how many you go to and how often you go to them.
I think that's really interesting as well, because actually you could say at the moment that events aren't working so well, but again, it depends why you're going to events and how are you measuring the impact of that event as well. Because if you're going for lead gen, but actually, it's about launching new data, it totally depends on why you're there, what your objectives are, and it's identifying those to start off with before you even start to look, are they being successful or not?
Yeah, and that's how you pick which event to go to, because launching data is a great example. You want to launch data at a really well-established, respected event. So that's why you're going. And chances are that a lot of the doctors going to that event because it's the same people going to that event every year, because they're going from a knowledge perspective. So you're probably not going to get as many leads at that event. But what you are going to get is the people that know you getting new data and potentially spending more with you or doing more cases with you because they've seen a new data, which is definitely in a benefit of going to the event. So I think it's about deciding why you're going to that event and setting a metric and going to the right event for the right metric. And that's definitely something that I don't think people do. I think they just go to every event and think that every event's going to give them leads, and that isn't necessarily the case.
Whereas actually it should be part of a bigger strategic plan around what are you promoting at the moment, when do you have product launches, and as you say, sometimes you have to be at events from a brand presence perspective, but what else do you fit into these events in line with your marketing plan for the year, product launches, etc., etc.
Yeah,
so in order to have a successful event, what do we see? Because, when we talk about, is it worth attending events? You've also got to talk about, well, actually, how are you showing up at that event? Because that could make a really big impact on whether you're successful or not, coming back, of course, to what your objectives are. But how can you be really successful in an event? Like, what sort of things should you really be thinking about to
Mm.
drive that success?
So let's say you've picked your objective already
Mm.
and you've done that part of it. So I think it's about maximizing why you're there. So if you're there for brand awareness and it's a big event, you need to realize that everybody is there for brand awareness. Everybody's got the big stand. So what are you doing at your stand that's different? And things that always work are things that are engaging, and things that are a benefit add to the person. Everyone's walking around that stand trying to avoid the sales rep, in all honesty.
Yes.
They're trying to get
Yeah.
from the talk to the lunch without a sales rep pulling them in to talk to them. So it's what a good stand does is makes those delegates want to go and speak to you. And it's stuff like having VR or coffee, or I have seen champagne at events, which is obviously a fun one. So you can do things that make
I've seen Ben and Jerry's as well.
oh, Ben and Jerry's is a great
And
one.
actually, we've also seen, we had on one stand I did when I was at Bard, we had a Scalextric set and all the products had the brand names on. I'm not sure it was hugely effective, but it had a lot of people on the stand.
The thing is, you say you're not sure it's hugely effective, but while those people are playing with that
Yeah.
I can't pronounce that word, or
Scalextrics. Yeah.
or they're eating their ice cream, they've come
Yeah.
over for the ice cream, but
Yeah.
naturally people start talking to them, and then people have no choice. They just feel that you just fall into the conversation about who you are and your company and
Yeah.
your product, and that feels like a much more natural conversation
Yeah.
versus, "Hi,
And
I'm Becca. Please talk to me." Like,
yeah.
that doesn't, you don't
It's
get
it's
response
so
from
true, but also, why do people form memories? This is going a touch off topic here, but why do people
that.
form memories? It's because they have an emotionally good experience. So
Yeah.
actually, if I think the product we were talking about at the time was called Dorado, if you were driving the Batmobile, which was actually one of the cars, and it had Dorado on it, and it was going really, really, really fast, and you won. You have a really good associations with Dorado, and next time you have that clinical indication for that angioplasty balloon, maybe you would actually think about using that balloon. So maybe actually it does help to solidify things in people's memories as well. The reason I say I'm not sure is it was a long time ago, and I'm not even sure we really measured it correctly, if I'm 100% honest.
Yeah, but I think it's really important that you even just get the people to your stand, because I think it's
Mm,
so easy just to make your stand not have anything on it. And I know people are going to say, well, I've paid for the space, I've paid for the booth walls, I've paid for designing, I've paid to make my train travel all there. Why do I also have to pay for engagement? Well, I
mm,
always think, flip that. You've paid for all these things. Don't you want to make the most out of it? And realistically, you're not going to unless you have some sort of engaging feature that makes people come to your stand.
mm,
And it doesn't need to be one of the sort of gimmicky things that we've talked about. It could also just be a value add, launching really great data, or doing things like a lunch and learn. So if you have
mm.
a screen, you play case studies on your screen
Or
only during
actually,
an
a live
hour.
presenter on the booth often works extremely
Live
well at certain
presenter.
times of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, stuff where they don't feel like they're coming, like all marketing, people don't want to
Mm,
be sold to. They want you to,
mm,
they want you to solve their problems. They want to feel heard. Your
mm,
booth should do the exact same thing. They should want to come and speak to you because you've either got something really exciting they want to try, or because they feel like you're going to solve their problem in the way that
mm.
what you've brought out, what content, what speaker you have there. So
I think
that's one.
there's one other really important thing about that I think sometimes is missed when it comes to exhibitions, and it's where are all your people going afterwards?
I love this. Yeah. So I think a lot of events do like dinners in the evening and or drinks, but they normally end about 6 or 7. Like they normally are, and then everyone does nothing in the evening. So what's really beneficial is having a dinner, drinks, workshop, something where it's both social and they're learning about your product, and they really work because, going
Mm,
back to the happy memories, people remember having dinner in a nice bar in Barcelona.
yeah.
They remember that. And then even if people don't talk that much about your product, when the sales representative comes in 3 weeks later, they can say, oh, did you go to the Barcelona event? What did you think of the
Yeah.
band? What did you think of the food? And that's, it just builds that relationship. And I think it's really a really great use of your time, because if you think about it, when else will your sales representative be able to see every doctor from in their area that's based in
Yeah.
California in one place? It's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
getting to invite them all to a dinner, drinks, workshop afterwards, it's just a really great way of you having them there.
Mm.
Um, especially if you throw drinks and food involved, people
Yeah,
come.
and build relationships. It's true.
Yeah,
It's so true. So I was
yeah.
actually thinking about something different, but that's a very good answer. What I was thinking about was where are you actually sending your audience to, like from your stand? Because your stand doesn't have all the information on, and they're never going to read it all on your stand. So, like, how do you provide people with more information after your
Yeah,
event,
that's a
before your
really good
event, during your
point,
event?
because I think that's something that is also really important with events, is how does it fit into your sort of life cycle of your marketing? How are you pushing them through the funnel? So, what are they taking away with them? Is there a piece of paper with a QR code that goes to your website so they can get more information? Is it a QR code that gives them your contact information? Like, how, if they leave that exhibition, do
Mm,
they know how they contact you next? Do they know where to go next? And if the answer is no, your booth hasn't done its job. You need
mm.
to be able to move them along in their journey, so every person that walks away from that booth knows how to get in contact with you again, yeah, where your website is, where all the other information is. That's really
Yeah,
important.
so people can self-discover. Because I know
Yeah.
we've been saying on this podcast for ages, but it's so true. 80% of the buying decision is made online, data
Yeah.
shows, before anybody even gets in contact with you. And that study did include healthcare, and the range was 70 to 90. So we know people are vetting us to death. So unless we accept that, we're not going to be successful. So it's really important we always provide people easy access routes back to our website, and we have really great content on there that actually answers all their fears, concerns, and issues about why they wouldn't use your device.
Mm.
So yeah, it's really important that people actually go back and always keep it, as you say, in part of your campaign.
And that's a really good point as well, because sales representatives are going to get questions on the stand they may or may not know the answer to,
Mm,
or they can give a short answer and then go, well, actually, there's way more information about this topic. Here's a blog article. And I think what's really important is that your sales team knows what is on your website. So if
mm,
you get a question about your device's MOA, or if what indications it can and can't be used in, there's a really clear article that lays all that information out, or the pricing
mm,
structure, or
mm.
all of that information. Because events are also a numbers game. You want to speak to as many people as possible. So
Yeah.
you don't also want to kind of get caught in an hour-long conversation with somebody potentially. If you could have a 15-minute conversation, then send them to the website, they get all the information, and then you can talk to the next
Or send them
person.
a personalized email with
Yeah,
links to all the information they just asked for, which you
exactly.
can then follow up later once you know they've opened the link, because you have a tracking software that can do that or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So events definitely have a lot of possibilities. And then from a lead generation perspective, if you get their email sent, like having content on your website means you can get their emails for later. I've also seen people sort of scan badges and then collect
Mm.
their information. I always lean against scanning badges to collect information. And I know you're looking at me funny for that, but the
No, I'm
reason
not.
is,
I'm interested to what you're going to say. I do.
well,
It.
because
Yeah.
if you're there for the ice cream, right, and you're just there for the ice cream,
Yeah.
do I want my sales team spending time chasing you and spending time with you as a lead? No, I don't. What I want, and also you can give a metric saying you've got 1,000 contacts from an event and they're all great. If only 3 of them are going to do
Yeah.
anything, you didn't get 1,000 contacts. You got 1,000. You got 1,000 names. They didn't
Ice
do
cream
anything.
eaters.
Yeah, you got 1,000 ice cream eaters. So I think what's important is that you collect the data of people that you're actually going to spend time following up on. Because I think one of the biggest frustrations that I used to hear from the sales team was, I've got loads, I've not got any data from this. Like, I've got loads of names, and now I'm going to have to go home and shift through who cared and who didn't
Mm,
care. That's not useful. That's not a good use of their
mm,
time. So if you can, for example, have a really valuable piece of content on the stand that you can email to people, and you can say, oh, look, I have this article, this guidebook, whatever it may be, you get a really clear they actually want that information. You can say,
well,
right, let me email it to you.
and an even better way of doing it, in actual fact, is if you set your lead forms up in a really clean way. So they said, I'm interested in this, 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 and this. You could set an automated email campaign up afterwards, which was totally personalized with the relevant information for them, which would be extremely effective. Of course, the better way is even doing one-to-one videos after a lead comes in, and then you can send them the information there as well. So a really, really personalized follow-up, which will significantly increase, I was going to say reduce your sales cycle time, but it will significantly increase your conversion rates.
And also, the same applies to if you have a speaker and they're
Mm,
presenting your case studies. You should have people at the back of the room answering questions. providing more information, leading them back to the website. You should have a call to action at the end of that presentation that says more information is available here. And I know for some people they're going to think, oh, this is obvious. Of course, I'm going to lead them back to my website. But actually, I think I've sat in a lot of conference talks so many times they don't.
Yeah.
Or maybe that generic slide at the front that says, hi, I'm from blah. And then they never mention anything ever again. And no one's listening in that second slide where you say what company you're from, because at that point, they don't know if you're going to provide them any value. So that slide that has done nothing. Where you need it is at the end, when you provided all this data, all this value, then say more information is available at the website, because then they care and then they're going to do something about it.
Yeah, it's making easy steps for them to make the next step themselves. Excellent. So I think so. In summary, what would you say if I said to you, Becca, are events worth it? What would you say?
I'd say they are worth it. You just need to pick the right event for your goal. And I see people going to hundreds of events a year, and I really question if that's the best way of doing it, or whether I think for me I would pick 3 or 4 really key events and do them really well. Put the budget on doing 4 events excellently, then sort of a scattergun do loads, because I think 4 well ends up better for you from an ROI perspective.
And of course, the interesting thing is, if you actually measure it, then you would definitely know what the answer is. So if you did put more budget into a smaller number and really drive conversions, drive attendance to the stand, and then push people off to your website afterwards, it'd be interesting. Once you have the metrics, you know what that looks like anyway.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd say as well is about choosing your event is make sure you're, speaking to the event organizer and asking the right questions. Ask for last year's attendance. Are the right people going? Or is the event, because after COVID, a lot of the feedback I've been hearing from events is that it's just the other companies that are exhibiting at the event. It's their teams that are there, and there's not actually any, real healthcare professionals going. So look at last year's delegate list and see, actually, is my audience going to this event? Do I want to spend tens of thousands of pounds marketing to these people for 2-3 days? And if the answer is no, don't go to that event. Look at the speakers. How good quality are the speakers? Are people going to go to this event? Because if the agenda is poor, likelihood doctors aren't going to take the day from out of surgery or out of the office to go to the event if the agenda's poor. So really look at those and decide if that's the right event, because that's really important before you spend your budget.
And it's not, and often they're not cheap. So excellent. Good. Well, Becca, thank you very much for all your insights today. As I say, perfectly positioned, because you used to work for Informa before we luckily brought you over to the light side. So that's excellent. So thank you everyone for listening today. If you have any questions about anything that's been discussed on the podcast today, just get in contact. You can either contact me or Becca through LinkedIn, or come through our website, whichever works best. Thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to speaking to you next week.